They say you should never mix work and pleasure, but for me, they were the same thing. My world for the last 3 years has been a 27-inch monitor in a small, quiet apartment in the 13th arrondissement of Paris. The pleasure was Kim. My work was for him. You know who I mean. The Kim. The one whose face launched a million hashtags, whose voice could probably broker world peace if he tried. For most people, he's a pop idol, a celebrity on a screen. For me, he was the architecture of my entire life. My apartment walls were bare, my fridge usually empty except for yogurt and coffee, but my desktop was a shrine. A curated gallery of his perfect jawline, his kind eyes, the gentle curve of his smile. He was color in a world of gray concrete and endless scrawling lines of code. I'm a coder, a good one. I build the little bits of magic that make your social media apps tick. Specifically, I design filters. You know, the ones that give you puppy ears or smooth out the dark circles from a sleepless night. It's trivial work, mostly, but my personal project, the one I poured my soul into, was different. I called it Visage. It wasn't just about erasing blemishes. It was about achieving a mathematical ideal of beauty, an ideal I'd mapped out pixel by pixel from studying thousands of high-resolution photos of Kim. Visage was designed to subtly reshape, relight, and remap any face into something divine, something worthy of him. It was my gift to the world, my contribution to his. It's strange, isn't it, to devote yourself so completely to someone you've never met. But my own reflection has never been a comfort. I've always seen the flaws first, the slight asymmetry of my eyes, the way my mouth turns down at the corners when I'm not forcing a smile, the plainness of it all. I'm not ugly, not really. I'm just unmemorable, forgettable, the kind of person you bump into on the metro and don't notice. I learned early on that the world is kinder to beautiful people. It opens doors for them. It smiles at them. For the rest of us, we have to build our own doors. So I built. I coded. I retreated into a world of pure logic and algorithms, where I had absolute control, where I could create perfection, even if I couldn't possess it. The filter was my answer to everything. It was a way to fix the glitch in the system that left some people behind. It was my way of making sure no one ever had to feel the way I did when I looked in the mirror. I just wanted to make the world more beautiful. I wanted everyone to see a face as perfect as his. That was the goal, to see his beauty everywhere. I succeeded, and now I can't see anything else. The night I finished the beta, I was buzzing. It was 3 a.m. The city was silent except for the distant sigh of a passing siren, and I had just compiled the most elegant piece of code I'd ever written. Visage was ready for a live environment test. The company wouldn't approve a human trial for months, their protocols a swamp of ethical reviews and bureaucratic red tape. But I had a neural chip, a perk of the job for senior developers, designed for direct brain interfacing with our systems. And I knew, with the unshakable certainty of a creator, that the code was flawless. So, in a fit of pride and impatience that felt like a religious calling, I bypassed the official servers. I rerouted the dev build directly to myself. I remember smiling as the progress bar hit 100%, a soft green light reflecting in my tired eyes. I went to bed dreaming of a more beautiful world. The next morning, at our daily stand-up meeting, something was off. I was listening to my manager, Celine, talk about server loads, but I couldn't focus on her words. I was staring at her face. The little worry lines she always had between her brows, etched there from years of deadlines, were gone. The skin around her eyes, usually creased from the way she genuinely smiled, was as smooth as porcelain. She looked rested, incredibly so. I felt a swell of pride so intense it was almost dizzying. It was working. My filter was subtly, perfectly enhancing reality. I glanced over at Jean-Pierre from accounting, a man whose face was a roadmap of a life well lived. The liver spots on his forehead faded into a soft, even tone. The scar that cut through his left eyebrow, a faint, silvery line that was almost invisible. He looked 10 years younger. I nearly laughed out loud with the sheer joy of it. It was a success! My beautiful, elegant code was making the world beautiful and elegant in return. But the feeling didn't last. By lunchtime, the quiet satisfaction had curdled into a strange, persistent unease. Every face in the open plan office had the same quality. The same poreless, airbrushed perfection. Every laugh line, every scar, every unique and human imperfection had been wiped clean. They were all beautiful, but it was the sterile, generic beauty of a department store mannequin. Their mouths moved, they laughed and spoke, but their expressions felt disconnected. Their faces frozen in a state of placid flawlessness. It was like watching a movie with a bad dub. The pieces were all there, but they didn't fit together. The real fear began on the metro ride home. The car was packed, a chaotic sea of Parisians heading home from work. As I scanned the crowd, I felt a wave of nausea. Every passenger, from the teenage girl scrolling on her phone to the old man reading his paper, had the same pristine, textureless skin. They were a moving gallery of perfect strangers. Then my eyes locked on a man across the car. His face seemed to flicker. For a single horrifying second, the features rearranged themselves. The jawline sharpened, the eyes widened slightly, the lips curved into a familiar, gentle smile. It was Kim. His perfect face, superimposed onto this stranger for a heartbeat, and then it was gone. I blinked, my heart hammering against my ribs. I squeezed my eyes shut, telling myself I was just exhausted, that I'd been staring at his picture for too many hours for too many years. When I opened them again, the man was just a man. A perfectly smooth, eerily beautiful man. I scrambled off at the next stop, long before my own, and ran the whole way back to my apartment, the sound of my own panicked breathing loud in my ears. I locked the door behind me, leaning against it, my breathing ragged. I had to fix this. It was just a bug, a simple glitch in the beta's rendering matrix. I stumbled to my desk, not daring to look at my own reflection in the darkened monitor. I knew what I would see. I pulled up the terminal, my fingers flying across the keyboard, trying to access the neural chip's diagnostic controls. But the lines of code on my screen wouldn't stay still. They shimmered, the crisp white text blurring at the edges as if seen through a heat haze. The filter wasn't just affecting faces. It was trying to correct everything, to smooth out the hard, imperfect edges of reality itself. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I couldn't read the code. I couldn't see the error.
I couldn't turn it off. I shoved myself away from the desk, a choked sob escaping my throat. I needed air. I needed to see something real. I threw open my window and stared down the street below, hoping the familiar sight of the bakery, the hum of evening traffic would ground me. A young couple walked by, hand in hand. They both turned their heads up, and the streetlights caught their faces. Both of them. They had Kim's eyes. His nose, his perfect, placid smile. An old woman followed, her stooped frame bizarrely topped with his youthful, flawless face. A man on a bicycle, a child running on the pavement, a taxi driver paused at the intersection. Every single one of them. The world was a sea of him. An endless, silent, smiling crowd of Kim, all looking back at me. And I realized I hadn't made the world more beautiful. I had just erased it.
I slammed the window shut, the sound echoing in my silent apartment. My only escape had to be at the office, the lab. There were tools there, diagnostic regs that could interface directly with my chip, things that didn't rely on my own corrupted vision. It was after hours, but I had access. It was my only chance. The journey back was a waking nightmare. I kept my head down, my eyes fixed on the cracks in the pavement, but I could feel them. The Kims. I could feel their placid, identical gazes on me from every direction. The city, once a vibrant tapestry of human expression, was now a hall of mirrors reflecting a single, perfect, terrifying image. In the reflection of a bus shelter, I saw a crowd of him waiting patiently. In a puddle on the street, his face stared up at the sky. His serene beauty, the very thing I had worshipped, had become the face of my own personal apocalypse. There was a low, persistent hum in my ears now, a sound like electricity buzzing just beneath my skull. The sound of the code working, the sound of my reality being overwritten. I made it to the campus, a ghost slipping through the automated gates. The building was sleek, dark, and blessedly empty. My footsteps echoed on the polished concrete floors as I hurried towards the development lab. This was my sanctuary, a place of pure logic and control. But as I swiped my keycard, I saw the security guard through the glass door of his booth. He looked up, and his face was Kim's. The company logo on his cap sitting strangely above those famous gentle eyes. He offered a slight, polite smile. My idol's smile. I felt my stomach clench, but I forced myself to nod back, a jerky pop-like motion, and pushed into the lab. The lab was my last hope. It was a clean room, filled with chrome and white plastic, the air smelling of ozone and electronically sterilized. In the center of the room was the diagnostic chair, a monstrosity of wires and articulated arms designed to do exactly what I needed, a hard reboot, a factory reset. But to activate it, I needed to log in at the main terminal. I sat down, my hands trembling. The screen glowed to life. I tried to focus on the login prompt, but the words were swimming, the edges blurring into soft, unreadable shapes. The filter was getting stronger, more aggressive. It wasn't just faces anymore. It was trying to smooth out everything, to remove the flaw of sharp, legible text. I squinted, leaning so close to my nose, almost touched the screen. I could just barely make out the shape of the letters, and with agonizing slowness, I typed my password. Access denied! I tried again. The letters seemed to melt even further into a soft, gray haze. Access denied. A cold dread washed over me. It wasn't me making a mistake. The code was actively fighting me. It recognized the terminal as an extension of my perception and was correcting the input, blurring the distinction between the characters I typed and the perfection it was trying to enforce. It was locking me out. My one escape route was dissolving before my very eyes.
I slammed my fist on the desk, a raw cry of frustration tearing from my throat. It was over. I was trapped. I slumped in the chair defeated and stared blankly at the dark screen of the monitor next to the one I'd been using. And that's when I saw it. A reflection. My reflection. But it wasn't my face. Staring back at me from the polished black screen was him. It was Kim. His face was perfectly mapped onto my own. My short, dark hair framed his iconic features. When my eyes widened in horror, his eyes widened. When my mouth fell open in a silent scream, his lips parted in a look of serene surprise. It was my body, my posture, my clothes, but it was his head, his face. The face I had adored, the face I had replicated, the face that had consumed my world had now consumed me. The bug I'd realized in the moment of sickening clarity had finally achieved its perfect logical conclusion. Unable to process the infinite complexity of every unique human face, the recursive loop in my code had defaulted to the primary dataset, Kim. And now, unable to distinguish between the outside world and its own hosts, it had found the last uncorrected face. Mine.
I was gone. I no longer existed. I was just another copy, another perfect, beautiful, empty vessel for the face of a man I would never know. The obsessive devotion that had been my life's engine had driven me off a cliff. My insecurity, my desperate need to create a beauty I felt I lacked, had armed the weapon of its own destruction. The ultimate horror wasn't just seeing him everywhere, it was becoming him. The line between reality and the artificial, the admirer and the admired had not just blurred, it had been erased, and I was on the wrong side of it. My escape had failed. The door was locked, and the monster I was running from was wearing my own skin. I looked around, the pristine, sterile lab, a place of creation, a place of solutions. There had to be one last thing, one final command I could execute. Not on the screen, in the real world. My eyes scanned the toolkits, the hardware benches, the racks of decommissioned equipment. And then I saw it. A heavy-duty electromagnetic degausser, an old piece of tech used for physically wiping data from hard drives by creating a powerful, chaotic magnetic field, a tool designed to erase, to create a perfect, silent, featureless void. There is a strange peace in total surrender. Holding the degausser felt like holding my own fate. It was heavy, solid, real, a piece of the world my filter hadn't yet managed to smooth away. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about what I was losing. What was there left to lose? My own face was already gone. I pressed the cold metal ring to the side of my head, right over the neural chip implant. I could feel the low thrum of the machine through my skull, a counter rhythm to the electric hum of the code. For a final, fleeting moment, I looked at my reflection in the dark monitor. Kim's beautiful face stared back, serene and unknowing. I wondered if this is what it felt like, to be an image, an idea, a perfect mask worn by the world, to be everywhere and nowhere at all. Then I pressed the button. There was no pain, just a pop, a sudden, violent flash of white light behind my eyes, so bright it felt like staring into the sun. The kaleidoscopic sea of Kim's face, the lab, the monitor, it all dissolved into that single blinding point of light. And then nothing. Just darkness. A profound, absolute, and silent darkness. The humming in my head was gone. The world was gone.
I'm still here. I think. A ghost in the machine I built and then broke. My body is in a hospital somewhere, I'm told, by voices that are now just abstract concepts. A shell that breathes and eats, but doesn't see or hear or feel. They don't understand what happened. They call it a catastrophic hardware failure, a 1 in a billion accident. They can't see the bug. They can't see the ghost. I got what I wanted in the end. I was so afraid of my own plain, forgettable face that I dedicated my life to a perfect one. I wanted to see his beautiful face everywhere. Now, I see nothing at all. I have no face. I'm formless, a disembodied consciousness trapped in a prison of my own design. A silent, featureless darkness where there are no reflections to fear. And I have never felt so real.
Thank you so much for watching or listening. The things that go bump in the night are hungry for attention. By liking and subscribing, you're telling me you want more. You're helping me bring even more chilling tales and terrifying content to life.